The weight of morning light. The alarm screams at 6:30 a.m., and Sarah Chen feels like she's drowning before her feet even touch the floor. 7 hours of sleep should be enough, every wellness app confirms it. But her body moves like it's wrapped in wet concrete. The mirror in her cramped San Francisco studio reflects puffy eyes and skin that looks older than her 35 years, despite the expensive serums cluttering her bathroom counter. She scrolls through her phone while brushing her teeth, absorbing the morning dose of productivity porn. 5 a.m. workout routines of CEOs. Intermittent fasting hacks. How I lost 30 pounds in 90 days. Each headline feels like an accusation. She's tried them all. Keto, CrossFit, meal prep Sundays that ended in Thursday takeout binges. Her body responds for a few weeks, then rebels with late-night kitchen raids and workouts that feel like punishment. The commute to her downtown marketing firm is a blur of podcast advice about optimization and self-discipline. Around her on the packed train, she notices something that's been nagging at her for months. Kenji, her Japanese co-worker, sleeps sitting upright with an ease that seems impossible. His face looks calm, almost serene, while she can barely nap in her own bed. At lunch meetings, he eats slowly from a small container, finishes before everyone else, yet never seems hungry an hour later like she always does. It's not just Kenji. There's Mrs. Tanaka from the corner market, 73 years old, who moves with more energy at 7 a.m. than Sarah feels after 2 cups of coffee. The sushi chef at her favorite spot maintains perfect focus during dinner rushes, never frantic, never depleted. They seem to inhabit a different relationship with their own bodies, one that doesn't require constant negotiation between willpower and exhaustion. At her desk, Sarah opens another browser tab about metabolism boosters while pretending to review campaign analytics. The irony isn't lost on her. She's marketing wellness products to people just as desperate as she is. Her phone buzzes with a text from her sister. "Still dragging yourself to those 6 a.m. spin classes? You look tired in all your photos lately." The comment stings because it's true. Despite following every expert recommendation, tracking macros, hitting step goals, taking supplements with names she can't pronounce, she feels like she's aging in dog years. Her energy crashes at 3 p.m. Her clothes fit tighter despite the scale showing the same stubborn number for months. Sleep feels like a negotiation with her racing mind. During lunch, she finds herself studying Kenji more carefully. His desk is notably uncluttered, just a small ceramic rice bowl he uses for the homemade meals he brings. The bowl looks old, well-worn, with a subtle crack along one edge that's been repaired with gold, a technique she vaguely remembers called kintsugi. While others inhale sandwiches while typing, he pauses between bites, chews deliberately, seems present in a way that feels almost foreign in their open-plan office chaos. "I'm sorry to stare," Sarah says during a quiet moment, "but you always seem so calm. What's your secret?" Kenji looks up from his bowl, considering the question with the same unhurried attention he gives his food. "No secret. Just habits my grandmother taught me. Very simple things." "Like what?" "The way you eat, when you sleep, how you treat your body like a guest you want to keep comfortable." He gestures to his bowl. This was hers. "Every meal I remember that food is not just fuel. It's time to rest the mind." Sarah feels something shift in her chest, a curiosity mixed with skepticism. She's heard about mindful eating, tried meditation apps, attempted to slow down her meals. But something in Kenji's tone suggests he's not talking about adding another task to an optimization routine. He's describing a completely different framework, one where the goal isn't to force her body into submission, but to create conditions where health emerges naturally. That evening, walking past the windows of her neighborhood Japanese restaurant, she pauses to watch the diners inside. They're not eating large portions, yet no one looks deprived. Conversations happen between courses. Chopsticks are set down between bites. The pace feels almost ceremonial, but without pretense, just people treating their meals and their bodies with a kind of respect. She realizes she's forgotten how to show herself. For the first time in months, Sarah skips her usual evening scroll through fitness influencer accounts. Instead, she sits with the uncomfortable question: what if everything she's been told about willpower and discipline is wrong? What if the answer isn't trying harder, but creating a completely different environment for her exhausted nervous system? The rice bowl image stays with her as she finally falls asleep, not as another tool to acquire, but as a symbol of something she can't quite name yet. A way of living that treats the body as worthy of care, not conquest. If you've ever felt tired even after a full night of sleep, or frustrated with diets that don't last, tell us in the comments which part of this story feels familiar, and stay with us for the next chapters. Sarah's first attempt at eating like Kenji is a disaster. She buys a small ceramic bowl from a Japanese home goods store and tries to eat her usual dinner portions from it. The bowl overflows. She refills it twice and still feels unsatisfied, like she's playing a trick on herself with smaller dishes. The chopsticks feel clumsy in her hands. She gives up after dropping the same piece of broccoli 3 times. "You're trying too hard," Kenji observes the next day, watching her struggle with her takeout salad, using the new chopsticks she brought to work. The bowl size is not the secret. The secret is what happens before you eat. Adai, he demonstrates by taking a slow breath before picking up his own chopsticks, pausing to look at his food, then beginning with soup. "My grandmother always started meals with something warm for the stomach. Miso soup, tea, something that tells your body, food is coming, prepare to receive it well." That evening, Sarah experiments. Instead of immediately diving into her usual rotisserie chicken and microwaved vegetables while checking emails, she makes tea first. Just green tea from a bag, nothing fancy. She sits at her small dining table, not the couch, not standing at the kitchen counter, and drinks it slowly while her food reheats. Something unexpected happens. The tea creates a buffer between her day and her dinner, a transition she didn't know she needed. Her nervous system downshifts slightly. When she finally eats, she notices flavors more clearly. The chicken tastes saltier than usual. The vegetables actually have distinct textures. She's still eating the same foods, but her body seems more present to receive them. Kenji's grandmother had other rules too, he explains over the following weeks. "Sleep close to the floor," he mentions, describing the thin futon he rolls out each night on tatami mats in his small apartment. Firm surface keeps the spine aligned, and getting up from the floor every morning keeps the joints moving. Sarah can't afford tatami mats, but she experiments with sleeping on a firmer mattress setting and putting her box spring on the floor. The first week is uncomfortable. Her hips ache. She misses the soft give of her pillow-top mattress. But gradually, she notices that rising in the morning requires more muscle engagement. A gentle, full-body stretch that wakes her up differently than just rolling out of a high bed. The bigger shift comes from the morning and evening light exposure that Kenji treats as non-negotiable. Grandmother would walk to see sunrise and sunset when possible. Not for exercise, just to tell the body what time it is. This practice feels almost ridiculously simple, but Sarah discovers it's harder than she expected. Her apartment faces west. She has to walk 4 blocks to reach a spot where she can see the eastern sky. The first few mornings, she rushes through it, checking her phone, thinking about her to-do list. But gradually, the walk becomes less about checking a box and more about the transition between sleep and day. The morning light hitting her face seems to flip some internal switch. She feels more alert during her commute, less dependent on that second cup of coffee. Evening walks to watch sunset have the opposite effect. They signal her nervous system to begin winding down, making her naturally sleepy rather than forcing herself to bed while her mind still races. Dr. Martinez, her primary care physician, is intrigued when Sarah mentions her experiments during a routine checkup 3 weeks later. These are actually evidence-based practices, she says, reviewing Sarah's slightly improved blood pressure and resting heart rate. Circadian rhythm regulation, gentle movement, eating slowly. We call it lifestyle medicine, though most patients want a prescription instead. What do you mean? Your nervous system has two modes, fight or flight and rest and digest. Most Americans live in constant fight or flight, rushing, multitasking, eating while stressed. The Japanese practices you're describing help shift you into rest and digest, where your body can actually process food and repair itself. Sarah realizes that her old approach, forcing herself through intense workouts while chronically sleep-deprived, eating quickly while working, pushing through fatigue with caffeine, had been keeping her body in a constant state of emergency. No wonder every diet and exercise program eventually failed. She was trying to optimize a system that never got the chance to relax. Her friend Marcus notices the changes before she does. "You seem different," he says during their usual Thursday happy hour. "Calmer or something. Are you on new meds?" "Just sleeping differently, eating slower. That's it. You're not doing that crazy morning boot camp anymore." "Nope." Marcus looks skeptical. "But how are you going to lose weight without really pushing yourself? You can't just eat slowly and expect results." Sarah doesn't have a good answer because she's not sure what results she's expecting. The scale hasn't changed much, but her jeans fit more comfortably. Her energy feels steadier throughout the day. Most surprisingly, she's stopped having the intense food cravings that used to derail her every evening. It's not dramatic, but it's sustainable in a way her previous efforts never were. That night, she sits with her evening tea and realizes she's stumbled into something larger than new habits. She's inadvertently begun treating her body like Kenji treats his grandmother's rice bowl, with care, attention, and the understanding that how she does something matters as much as what she does. 6 weeks into her gentle experiment with Japanese rhythms, Sarah faces her first real test. Her company launches a major client campaign requiring late nights, catered dinners, and the kind of intensity that used to thrive on before her nervous system started demanding sunset walks and slow meals. "You're eating weird again," Marcus observes during one of their team's pizza-fueled strategy sessions. While everyone else devours slices while brainstorming, Sarah has quietly asked for a small plate and is eating slowly, pausing between bites, even as deadlines loom. It's not weird, it's just different. "Come on, it's crunch time. You can go back to your Zen thing after we deliver." The peer pressure stings more than she expected. Part of her wants to prove she can still grind with the best of them, power through on caffeine and adrenaline, sleep when the project's done. The old Sarah would have worn the exhaustion like a badge of honor. But when she tries to revert to her previous patterns, eating quickly while working, staying up until 2 a.m., skipping her morning walks, her body rebels immediately. Her digestion becomes sluggish, her sleep restless, her afternoon energy crashes more severe. It's as if her nervous system has tasted a calmer way of existing and refuses to go back without a fight. Kenji finds her looking frustrated by the office coffee machine at 4 p.m., clearly struggling with caffeine withdrawal from her attempt to quit her usual triple-shot afternoon latte. "Adaptation is hard," he says simply. "When I moved here, I tried to eat American portions on American schedules. Made me feel terrible, but I thought it was normal. Took me 2 years to trust that my grandmother's ways worked better for my body, even in San Francisco. But how do you handle intense work periods? Don't you ever need to just push through?" "Push through, yes, but not by abandoning everything. During busy times, I keep the morning walk shorter but still go. I eat faster, but from the same bowl, still starting with soup. The habits become the anchor, not the first thing to sacrifice." This reframe helps Sarah navigate the next 3 weeks. Instead of viewing her new practices as luxuries to abandon under pressure, she treats them as the foundation that makes pressure sustainable. She wakes up 15 minutes earlier to preserve some version of her morning light exposure, even if it's just standing on her fire escape with tea. She brings miso soup packets to work, using them to create the small ritual that signals her nervous system to prepare for food, even during working lunches. Dr. Martinez is impressed with Sarah's 3-month follow-up results. Her blood pressure has dropped 5 points, her resting heart rate is lower, and her inflammatory markers have improved. These changes typically take 6 months of consistent exercise and dietary modification, she says, reviewing the lab work. What exactly are you doing differently? Sarah struggles to explain because it doesn't sound like much. Sleeping on a firmer surface, eating from smaller dishes, walking for sunrise, pausing before meals. No dramatic calorie cuts, no intense workout regimen, no expensive supplements. It sounds like you've regulated your circadian rhythm and shifted your autonomic nervous system toward parasympathetic dominance, Dr. Martinez says. Essentially, you've created conditions where your body can function more efficiently without chronic stress hormones interfering with metabolism and sleep. The medical explanation helps Sarah understand why these simple changes feel so powerful. She's not just eating less, she's eating in a state where her body can actually process and utilize food properly. She's not just sleeping more. She's sleeping in alignment with natural light cycles that optimize hormone production. But the social challenges intensify. Her sister visits for the weekend and is bewildered by Sarah's routine. You're going to bed at 9:30 on a Friday, and why are you eating with those tiny chopsticks like you're at a tea ceremony? I feel better when I do these things, but you're missing out on life. When did you become so rigid and... I don't know Japanese. You're American, Sarah. Live a little. The criticism touches something deep. Sarah realizes she's been unconsciously worried about seeming too foreign, too disciplined, too different from the friends who bond over being exhausted and overstuffed together. There's a social currency in shared suffering, commiserating about insomnia, trading hangover stories, complaining about failed diets. Her new relationship with her body feels isolating in unexpected ways. When co-workers grab drinks after stressful days, she often chooses to go home and decompress with tea and early sleep instead. When friends plan brunch at 11 a.m., she's already had her morning walk and feels out of sync with their late morning energy. But lying in bed that night, Sarah notices something that makes the social awkwardness worth it. For the first time in years, her mind isn't racing. The anxiety that used to keep her scrolling her phone until midnight has quieted. Her body feels tired in a natural way, not the wired exhaustion she used to mistake for productiveness. She thinks about Kenji's rice bowl, sitting on her kitchen counter next to the small ceramic dishes she started using for her own meals. The bowl's golden repaired crack catches light from the street lamp outside her window. Maybe that's what she's learning, that caring for herself doesn't require becoming a different person, just allowing her authentic rhythms to emerge from under years of rushing and forcing. The question that keeps her awake isn't anxiety anymore, but curiosity. What would happen if she trusted these quiet practices completely, even when the world around her insists that comfort and health require more struggle, not less? Would you rather force yourself with willpower or redesign your environment and habits like this character is learning to do? Comment which path makes more sense to you, and share this episode with someone who needs a gentler approach to change. 4 months into what Sarah has started thinking of as her quiet revolution, she faces the ultimate test, a 2-week business trip to New York, staying in hotels, eating client meals, and managing a schedule that starts with 7 a.m. breakfast meetings and ends with networking dinners at 10 p.m. The old Sarah would have seen this as an opportunity to get back to normal, sleeping in comfortable hotel beds, eating rich restaurant meals without worry, proving she could still handle the demanding pace that once defined her professional identity. But packing her small ceramic bowl alongside her business suits feels like bringing a piece of home that's become essential to her well-being. The first few days are brutal. Hotel breakfast buffets overwhelm her system after months of simple morning meals. Client dinners stretch for hours, with courses arriving while she's still processing the previous dish. Her circadian rhythm, now accustomed to sunset walks and early bedtime, rebels against the artificial lighting and late social obligations. By day 3, she's exhausted in a way that feels familiar and terrifying, the bone-deep fatigue she'd forgotten since changing her routines. Her digestion struggles with rich, quickly eaten meals. Her sleep becomes fragmented despite the hotel's expensive mattress. She realizes how much her gentle practices had been supporting her nervous system. Without them, she feels like she's running on empty. But instead of abandoning everything, Sarah remembers Kenji's advice about adaptation. She starts small, asking room service for miso soup with breakfast, using her travel bowl for portion control, even when eating elaborate client meals, taking brief walks between meetings to catch glimpses of natural light. The breakthrough comes during a particularly intense negotiation dinner. While her colleagues order multiple cocktails and large entrees, Sarah requests hot tea and uses her chopsticks to eat slowly from her carefully portioned plate. Instead of feeling deprived, she finds herself more present to the conversation, more articulate in the late evening discussions, more able to read the room while others become foggy from overeating and alcohol. "You seem remarkably centered for someone managing this much stress," notes the client, a successful entrepreneur known for his demanding standards. "What's your secret?" Sarah considers mentioning her grandmother's rice bowl philosophy, then realizes she's unconsciously absorbed some of Kenji's wisdom about treating the body like a respected guest. "I've learned that small, consistent habits create more energy than pushing through on willpower alone." The conversation shifts to sustainable performance, and Sarah finds herself articulating something she's been learning through experience, that the cultural narrative of grinding through challenges often creates more problems than it solves. Her client, who's been struggling with executive burnout, asks genuine questions about her approach. Flying home, Sarah reflects on how the trip became an unexpected laboratory. Rather than proving she could abandon her new practices, she'd discovered how to adapt them to challenging circumstances. More importantly, she'd realized that what she initially thought was just about food and sleep had become a completely different relationship with stress itself. Dr. Martinez is fascinated by Sarah's 6-month labs. Her cortisol levels have normalized, her insulin sensitivity has improved, and her inflammatory markers are now in the optimal range. These results typically take significant pharmaceutical intervention or major lifestyle overhaul, she says. "What you're doing is working at a cellular level." "I still eat basically the same foods," Sarah says. "I just eat them differently. And I sleep on a harder surface, walk twice a day, use smaller dishes. You've essentially created a controlled environment for your nervous system," Dr. Martinez explains. "Chronic stress keeps your body in emergency mode, where digestion shuts down, sleep becomes restless, and inflammation increases. Your practices are giving your parasympathetic nervous system space to do its job, repair, restore, process nutrients properly." That evening, Sarah sits with her tea and realizes she's stumbled into something profound about human adaptation. The Japanese practices she'd been experimenting with weren't just individual habits, but pieces of a cultural framework that treats the body as worthy of ongoing attention rather than something to overcome or optimize through force. Her phone buzzes with a text from Marcus. "Drinks tonight? I need to vent about work stress." For the first time, Sarah doesn't feel obligated to bond through shared suffering. Instead, she invites him to join her evening walk, curious if he might be ready for a different approach to managing pressure. As they walk toward the sunset viewpoint she's visited hundreds of times now, Marcus admits he's been watching her transformation with confusion and envy. "You seem happier, but you're also, less available for the usual complaints and late-night hangouts. It's like you've joined some secret club." not a club. Just a different relationship with my own body, like treating myself as well as I'd treat a good friend. That sounds so simple. It's almost insulting. Sarah laughs, remembering her own resistance to practices that seemed too gentle to be effective. I thought I needed to suffer to change. Turns out I needed to stop suffering to change. Walking back in the growing darkness, she catches their reflection in a shop window and notices something that makes her pause. Her posture is straighter, her pace unhurried, her expression calm. The changes have been so gradual that she hadn't seen them accumulate into someone who moves through the world differently, not because she's forced herself to, but because she's created conditions where ease became natural. 8 months after that first conversation with Kenji, Sarah sits in her apartment holding 2 photographs, one from her company retreat the previous year and one from last week's team dinner. In the older photo, she looks successful but exhausted. Skin puffy, posture tense, smile that doesn't reach her eyes. In the recent photo, something fundamental has shifted. Her face looks clearer, more present, like she's actually inhabiting her own body, rather than just carrying it through her obligations. The revelation doesn't come as a dramatic moment, but as a quiet recognition that's been building for weeks. She's not just thinner or more energetic, though both are true. She's developed what she can only describe as trust in her own body's intelligence. When she's hungry, she eats slowly until satisfied. When she's tired, she sleeps without negotiating with herself about productivity. When stressed, she walks or breathes deeply instead of reaching for distractions that leave her more agitated. This shift becomes crystalline during a dinner with her sister, who's visiting to see Sarah's transformation firsthand. They're eating at Sarah's favorite Japanese restaurant, where she's become a regular since her experiments began. "I still don't get it," her sister says, watching Sarah eat methodically with chopsticks from a small bowl of rice. "You're eating carbs. You're not weighing your food. You're not even exercising that much. How are you the healthiest you've been in years?" Sarah pauses, chopsticks resting on the edge of her bowl, Kenji's grandmother's bowl, which he'd gifted to her after she'd admired its golden repair work for months. The weight of the ceramic feels substantial in her hands, grounding her to the present moment. "I think I spent most of my adult life trying to force my body to cooperate with my life, instead of designing a life my body could thrive in." What does that even mean? Every diet I tried was about restriction and willpower. Every workout was about pushing through discomfort. Every productivity hack was about optimizing sleep or energy instead of actually getting enough sleep or addressing why I was so depleted. Sarah realizes she's articulating something she's been understanding through her cells rather than her mind. The Japanese practices hadn't just changed what she did. They'd changed her fundamental assumption about how change happens. With these habits, I'm not fighting myself anymore. I eat when hungry, sleep when tired, move when my body wants to move. But I've created conditions where what my body wants aligns with what's good for it. Her sister looks skeptical. "But don't you need discipline, self-control? You can't just follow every impulse." "The impulses change when the environment changes," Sarah explains, surprising herself with the clarity. "When I sleep better, I don't crave sugar for energy. When I eat slowly, I notice fullness before overeating. When I walk twice a day, my body wants to move more, not less." This conversation helps Sarah understand what Dr. Martinez had called environmental medicine. The idea that sustainable health comes from designing circumstances where healthy choices become obvious rather than difficult. She'd accidentally discovered that the real secret wasn't Japanese food or specific practices, but the Japanese approach to treating daily habits as significant, worthy of attention and care. Kenji confirms this when she shares her insight with him the following Monday. "My grandmother never talked about discipline," he says, cleaning his ceramic bowl after lunch. She talked about creating a daily rhythm that honored the body's needs. Wake with light, eat with attention, sleep with darkness, move with purpose. Not force, just alignment. Why isn't everyone doing this if it works so well? Because it requires treating your body like it matters more than your schedule. In America, that feels selfish or indulgent. In Japan, it feels practical. That evening, Sarah has what she'll later recognize as the pivotal moment of her entire transformation. She's preparing her usual simple dinner when her phone buzzes with a work crisis that would normally send her into stress-eating mode. Instead, she finds herself taking 3 slow breaths, finishing her meal prep, and only then responding to the emergency. The crisis gets resolved without her sacrificing her evening routine. But more importantly, she realizes her nervous system no longer defaults to fight-or-flight mode when challenges arise. Somehow, through months of small daily practices, she's rewired her stress response to include pause and consideration rather than immediate reaction. Sitting with her evening tea, Sarah understands that what she'd initially thought was about weight loss or energy had actually been about something much more fundamental, reclaiming agency over her own biological responses. She'd learned to be the kind of person who can remain calm under pressure, not through heroic effort, but through creating daily conditions that support nervous system resilience. The rice bowl sits before her on the table, its golden scars catching the lamplight. Like the bowl, she realizes she's been broken and repaired, but the repair has made her stronger and more beautiful than before. The difference is that instead of trying to hide her cracks or pretend they don't exist, she's learned to tend to them with the same care Kenji's grandmother had shown her dinnerware. This isn't a story about willpower triumphing over weakness, Sarah realizes. It's a story about discovering that her body had been wise all along. She just needed to create conditions calm enough to hear what it was trying to tell her. 1 year after Sarah first noticed Kenji sleeping peacefully on the morning commute, she finds herself in Dr. Martinez's office reviewing her annual physical results. The numbers tell a story that still surprises her. Blood pressure in the optimal range, inflammatory markers low, metabolic indicators suggesting someone a decade younger. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," Dr. Martinez says, reviewing the labs. "I have patients on multiple medications who don't have results this good. You've essentially reversed a year of biological aging, but the real measure of change isn't in the lab work," Sarah knows. It's in moments like this morning when her 6:30 a.m. alarm went off and she woke up naturally clear-headed, without the fog and resistance that had defined her mornings for years. It's in last weekend when she caught herself unconsciously walking to catch the sunset and realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd stayed awake scrolling her phone until midnight. The most dramatic shift is social. Marcus, who'd initially been skeptical of her Japanese phase, has started joining her for morning walks after struggling with his own burnout. "I thought you'd gotten weird and rigid," he admits, as they watch sunrise from their usual hillside spot. "Turns out I was just scared that your way worked better than mine." Sarah's sister visits for the 1-year mark and is struck by changes that extend beyond the physical. "You move differently," she observes over dinner, "like you're not in a hurry to get away from yourself." The comment captures something essential. Sarah realizes she'd spent decades treating her body like an inconvenient vehicle that needed to be motivated, controlled, optimized, and pushed through resistance. Now it feels more like a trusted companion whose signals she's learned to read and respect. Her relationship with food has become almost boring in its simplicity. She eats when hungry, stops when satisfied, enjoys flavors without guilt or calculation. The small ceramic bowl that started as an experiment has become as essential as her coffee cup, not because she needs to control portions, but because eating from it creates the pause that allows her to notice what her body actually wants. Work stress still exists, but her response to it has fundamentally changed. During last month's major client crisis, She found herself taking breaks to breathe deeply rather than fueling through on caffeine and adrenaline. The project got completed successfully, but without the physical and emotional hangover she used to consider inevitable after intense deadlines. Kenji, now a genuine friend, rather than just an observed co-worker, notices the shift during their lunch conversations. "You don't talk about your habits anymore," he says. "They've just become who you are." He's right. Sarah no longer thinks about doing Japanese practices. She simply lives in a rhythm that honors her body's natural cycles. Morning light exposure isn't a hack, it's how she prefers to start her day. Eating slowly isn't a technique. It's how food tastes better and feels more satisfying. Sleeping on a firm surface isn't discipline. It's how she wakes up without stiffness. The deeper transformation is psychological. Sarah has developed what she thinks of as body trust, confidence that if she creates good conditions and pays attention, her physical systems will guide her toward health rather than chaos. This trust extends beyond food and sleep into work decisions, relationship choices, even financial planning. When your body feels stable and supported, it's easier to make decisions from wisdom rather than fear or desperation. 3 years later, Sarah receives an unexpected email from a colleague who'd watched her transformation from a distance. "I know this sounds weird, but I've been curious about the changes in your energy and how you handle stress. Would you be willing to share what shifted for you?" Reading the message, Sarah realizes her quiet revolution has become visible to others, not because she's evangelized or tried to convert anyone, but because sustained well-being has its own unmistakable presence. She thinks about how to respond, not with a list of practices, but with an invitation to consider what it might feel like to treat your body as deserving of care rather than conquest. That evening, she prepares tea in the ceramic cup that's become central to her wind-down ritual, then sits at her small table with Kenji's grandmother's rice bowl. The golden repairs catch the lamplight as they have hundreds of times before, reminding her that healing often involves honoring what's been broken rather than pretending damage never occurred. She thinks about the woman who used to force herself through workouts she hated, restrict foods she enjoyed, and push through exhaustion she thought was normal. That woman wasn't weak or undisciplined. She simply hadn't learned that sustainable change comes from creating conditions where the healthy choice becomes the obvious choice, where energy emerges from rest rather than stimulation, where the body becomes an ally rather than an adversary. Outside her window, the city continues its restless pace of ambition and optimization. But inside her small apartment, Sarah has created a pocket of different values: rhythm over speed, attention over efficiency, trust over control. It's not a rejection of modern life, but a quiet insistence that ancient wisdom about human biology still applies, even in a world that profits from keeping people exhausted and reaching for external solutions. The rice bowl sits empty before her, waiting for tomorrow's mindful meal. Like her own body, it's an object that becomes more beautiful through careful, consistent use, not despite its imperfections, but because of the care taken to honor them. If this story reminded you that real transformation comes from small habits repeated over time, not from overnight fixes, subscribe to the channel, tell us which country you watch from, and invite someone to start this journey with you in the next story.